Right. Those who don't know me, my name is John Wadman, and it's very difficult to describe what you describe yourself, but I guess I'm a picture maker and my interest in researching media. And I'm a technician at UAL, based really at Camberwell. And I have a real interest in historic photographic processes and methodologies. So the thought was to bring some people together and start to do it as a series of events online. And the first thing that we started to talk about when this came around was this idea of photography in nature. And we had problems, semantic problems about what photography is, or even if there is such a thing as photography anymore. And also then once we tried to get a head around photography, the next thing that happened was we didn't know what nature was. We then renamed it, and it's called Photosensitivity and the Natural World, which really, if you look at that, I can just sum that up as maybe a way converting sunlight into information. Now what I'm going to do is hopefully introduce you to the artists, if they've managed to get onto this, and we'll play their presentations. Now, the presentations are all under 5 minutes, so they're not terribly long. So first of all, I'm going to go to Lexy. So Lexy, I can see you there. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
I haven't known you for very long, but you come over as a very diligent person. You have a very unique way of looking at the world. So I hope everyone could take a look at your website, Lexy. Are you still in Japan?
Yes, I'm in Tokyo now, getting ready for returning London. Yeah, I'm in Tokyo, just finished my exchange course in Kyoto.
Oh, it's finished? Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're going to get back to London at some point?
Yeah, in the mid-September. All
right, yeah. Okay, well, we're going to start with your video, but before we do that, I'm going to talk to the others. So is Silvia there by any chance? Yes? Okay, Silvia, I'll put your microphone on, I think. And yeah, we worked quite closely, haven't we, for quite a bit. I think it kind of exhausted my technical input. And you've been involved with doing so many different things. And this idea of cross-matching things, digital and cyanotype and all these things. A lot of these things that you've been doing haven't been done before. Which is great, you know, so I'll be coming to you for advice.
I will go for you as well for more advice.
Yeah, you can, but I think you may have exhausted my technical knowledge. And you're part of the Saatchi Gallery. There's a group show you're doing. Yeah, yeah. Good. All right. Are you going to be around for some Q&A later? You know, good. All right. Well, I'm going to go on to Liz now. So Liz, I'm going to unmute you.
Hello.
Okay. Hi, Liz. How are you?
Hear me? Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. My audio apparently is very quiet. Can anyone hear me?
You sound fine. Yeah, we've known each other for a while, haven't we? I mean, it goes a few years. So yeah, Liz is from South London. Yes, is that right?
Well, I live in South London.
You live in South London. Yeah. Yeah. And you are one of the directors of the Gate Dark Group. And I'd like to say, you know, your work, which differs, which is great. All three of these presentations are very different. Your work has quite often taken on quite a performative quality. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, kind of. I never really intended, I'm not a very performative person, to be honest, but the work is just going that way as I keep getting more experimental.
Yeah.
Just because I'll use photograms all the time, you have that like physical connection with the paper in a sense, with the objects.
Well, hopefully, you know, you might be able to expand on that a little bit. We're going to go in now and play all the presentations.
This video is about 2 minutes long and plays on loop. It explores the combination of analog darkroom printing and digital videos. In the loop video, the blueprint of mussel shells keeps appearing and disappearing with the waves moving up and down. The lapping waves seem like they are washing the print to make it emerge, just like the washing step in the cyanotype process. These mussel shells were picked up from the shown coast. Some parts on their surfaces are dark blue, just like the color of the blueprints. But this dark blue is not the normal color of the mussel shells. Probably the continuous erosion by the sea waves, sunlight, and wind, as well as the friction with the sands, create this unique color. This dark blue is somewhat not the natural color itself, but a color created by nature embrace. To some extent, the cyanotype blue is also in the same way, a color between the natural and the made.
Memory, identity, and cultural background are some of the themes of my practice. I use nature and the Spanish landscape as a vehicle of expression and find the process as important as the final piece. I work with different media, traditional methods like cyanotype and etching, and other more contemporary processes like laser engraving. I had always worked with photography and printmaking, and I am very interested in combining both. First, I did some experimentation with each of the techniques to find out what I could get from them. Cyanotype is very accessible for everybody because it is cheap and you don't need a dark room to produce the print. My best work was produced in my home in Spain, where the sun is very strong and I was able to develop my prints with rainwater. I used plants in different states, fresh, dry, and semi-dry, and combined them with homemade photographic filters to get different tonalities of blue. Experimenting with wet cyanotype, spices from a kitchen cardboard, and bleach allows the creation of interesting texture and shapes on the print. Screen printing is a photosensitivity-based process. Like cyanotype, you can use objects to produce photograms or different negatives. I started to research how to make a screen which will allow me to get a more precise edition of my cyanotype. I tested different materials and media and found stencil the fastest and more reliable way to do it, especially for registration. Etching is one of the oldest methods of printmaking. I like to work with embossed image as a metaphor for purity and with layers of the same element to get underlying form and more abstract image. Painting with cyanotype on top of the print is very unpredictable because the etching oil-based ink doesn't hold the blue mixture very well. However, if you print an etching plate on top of a cyanotype, this problem doesn't arise. I found that by merging all these techniques together, I can express hidden feelings in a very distinctive way. The powerful blue cyan from the cyanotype brings a feeling of serenity into the artwork, complementing and lifting every process involved in its creation.
On, you're going.
Okay, so the title of your piece is Subject Reports in Blue.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a bit about what it is?
So it's basically a reaction to representations of sex and sexuality. So what I'm asking people to do is I'm going to coat some basically mattress-sized pieces of paper in cyanotype chemistry. I fold the paper up into like a map fold and I post it off to willing participants across, all genders, all sexualities, ethnicity, ability, age, as many possible varieties of people. Send the paper off to them with instructions on what to do with it, and they have sex on it, however they want to do that, and develop it and send it back to me.
So it's all good to go.
The idea is because cyanotype chemistry isn't necessarily that sensitive and only sensitive to sunlight, it's going to be a long exposure most likely, so it's not going to be this sort of graphic silhouette of like, a Kama Sutra sex position or something like that. It's going to be abstract or odd, or maybe something won't, maybe we'll get nothing on the paper, maybe people will stay really still on the paper and you'll get something, but it will be different completely depending on how every single person involved does it.
Take it out of the shot.
What I'm allowing to come into this project is the environment, how people naturally interact with each other.
The graphic nature of it is because it has actually been in contact with it, and there's like a sort of explicit kind of indexical reality to it. I just feel like a photogram has got a deeper connection to the subject matter. It relies on the object touching the actual paper and that being a one-off. The paper itself is completely subject to like the world around it, its environment.
Is for like this piece of paper, this photosensitive piece of paper, to be a metaphor for the entire act, as well as a very visceral document of it. The visual result isn't necessarily important. It's the physical contact with the paper, and if that photosensitive paper can pick up on how they do it.
Yeah, I was just wondering how you find your participants, like if you advertise online or you put it in newspapers, your photos.
So it started with just tests, with basically actually just going to the pub, chatting to people, and it's amazing how many people want to take part. And then my plan is to sort of mostly do it online, do different Facebook groups and Instagram and things like that. But I also wanted to sort of approach charities or different venues, like so say like different like LGBTQ bars and stuff like that. Yeah, so I'm still trying to figure out more and more ways to get as broad a range of people as possible, to be honest. Because in some ways, if you do it by the internet only, you sort of might cut out people from different age ranges, you know, like older people. So yeah, any of the suggestions of different methods as broad as possible. Yeah.
What information do you put about those people? With like in the do you put the information about them in the title?
Well, no. I think I keep a sort of record of like who I've sent it to. But if they get exhibited, I feel like it's a decision for the actual participants about whether they want to identify themselves or not. I'm still a bit torn about whether it's important to identify them explicitly or whether like just the knowledge of how it was made with the variety is kind of enough.
I think people say when they see your video is they want to see what the work is, you know, and I'm in a fortunate position of being able to see it, and I just like to tell everybody, you know, it has quite an impact because it's full size, you know, obviously, and of people, and it comes with all the kind of you know, dilapidation that you would expect from sending it through the post, unfolding it, and people lying on it and having sex on it, perhaps.
Right, you want to see what it is? I could show you one of them if I. Right, there's two. So this one came back like intact, mostly.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes. It's a very good blue, very intense.
Is it two human figures?
Yes, I think so.
Pile of very weak cyanotype. With like lots of rips in it.
Oh right, this came in pieces.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to see them all together, you know, in a big show.
You get some nice details. Like, hold on. Even though this one came back with like not very much on it, like because like the light was too weak and they struggled rinsing it and stuff, it's still like nice kind of
yes
curls and shapes and things.
I'm glad you gave us the opportunity to look at them. Got another question here from Caroline. I don't think she can be heard because she's unable to unmute. And she says, what initially attracted each of the artists to using these cameraless techniques? That's quite a good question. So let's start with you, Liz. I mean,
well, initially it kind of started because I went to university and was skint and didn't have a very good camera. And I
that's a good reason, yeah.
I got a bit sort of, and I was quite shy and I got a bit intimidated by like the sort of camera sort of fetishization and stuff like that. And I never really bothered with photograms, but then I just got really fascinated with it. And I liked, it's that thing I kind of spoke a bit about in the video. It's like indexical. It's like you're creating your own like one-off negative. Like the object has been in contact with the paper. It kind of gets rid of the sort of complications you can sometimes have with a lens. I like that it feels like it's a print and it's not like a window, which I sometimes think you get with camera-based photography. So I kind of got into that really.
Yeah. And what about you, Silvia? You know, what drew you to this? I mean, you come from a background of printmaking, don't you?
Yeah. Well, I always work with photography to verify image, but I've been a couple of years without doing any artistic work. So when I started the MA, I want to go back to my roots, start from scratch. So cyanotype always attracted me, and I thought it was a good starting point. I also do the pinhole cameras and cyanotype.
Quite often people, when they've been working with their practice for a while and they're perhaps doing their MA, is they do resort back to their kind of roots and they do want to explore that. I don't think we just find different ways of saying it, don't we? Lexy, what about you? What, you know, because I really would like to know, what attracted you to, you know, working in this cameraless way, you know?
My work is always about the repeated working process.
I always feel better when I see your work. I always come away feeling calmer, you know. Is that a good response?
Yeah. It's also like breathing, human breathing.
Do you have any more questions? Anybody?
I was going to expand a bit on what you said, John.
Yes.
It's like, I think you're right with the sort of people, as what I was saying before, like the sort of fetishization of like camera equipment, it being all really macho and technical, you know, like if I tell people I'm a photographer, the first thing they ask is, oh, what camera have you got? I was like, oh, I don't actually use a camera.
Yeah.
It kind of, you know, and then photography now being so understood as like handheld, digital, constant, is quite nice to, you can be more experimental of what a photograph is. So people look at my work and don't think it's photography based at all. They've got no idea what they're looking at. And then it's quite nice to be like, it is photography, but not as, because photography is sort of taken over as like a ubiquitous digital language.
Yes.
Nice to disrupt it.
Some people, I don't know what photography is anymore. And I don't like the word because it's too encompassing and too big. I think you know that, and yeah, you got a point there. I'm surprised that you didn't like fetishization. It surprises me. I mean, isn't there another fetishization with the, you know, with the practice of what we do as well? You know, or maybe it's a better one, less immersed in commerce. Yeah.
Less sort of. You still get people being like, "Oh, what paper did you use?" But it's much, you know, it's a bit more niche. You don't get people like, it's not as much of a hierarchy. Like, well, I've got the Canon 1D.
Yeah.
And then you've got like all these like unboxing videos and this constant like analysis of a tiny little component of a camera, and it's just like you don't actually make anything interesting. You're just talking about, you know, what's the point of moving the technology forwards and forwards if there's no point, if you're not making anything with it, if it's not helping you solve a problem.
Yes,
it's just megapixels for the sake of megapixels, you know.
And the other thing we're doing is we're letting the medium talk for itself. You know, we're bringing the medium in the forefront. And I've said before, you know, I don't like this kind of grand authorship that some artists have. And you know, this is really a way of acting as a conduit as artists to point out the phenomenon of the natural world, you know. Yeah. Okay. Well, finally, I guess, as we're talking about that kind of phenomenon, which is what this is about, I'm going to, you know, over the months and stuff, as we have as a group, we've talked and supported each other for some time, discussing these things, and we've been asking fundamental questions, you know, around art and science. Art and the natural world is you know, mutually dependent of each other. You know, I've been really humbled by it, you know, particularly by your, you know, the enormous generosity that, you know, you, Liz, Silvia, Lexy, you know, you've given. You know, I've learned an awful lot, and so for that, yeah, thank you very much. Bye.